Welcome all to the 111th level of the RPG Cave. I am not Ryan Turford, the level 199 Dark Lord. No, my name is Garret Bland. I am the host now for this episode, level 199 Elf Battle Alchemist. I'm going to have to get used to that because that's a mouthful. But I am here with Mr. Seth Sergil. How you doing, good sir?
Hey, buddy. Glad to be
Yeah.
here. Happy to be hanging out with you. Got a fun, kind of topic tonight. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
looking forward to it.
Definitely. It's been a long time coming for sure because, I've been playing this game. You've been playing this game for a while, for the past few months. And now we're going to just go through a whole review of it, So this is going to be a big review of Sea of Stars. But before we get into it, Seth, you are the level 199 human warrior cook. And I love
Yeah,
it.
let's
Totally
go.
love
I
it.
had to. I mean, like, I kind of had to. I mean, anybody that's played Sea of Stars, if you know, you know. I kind of had to go for it. Garrett was like, "What's your racing class going to be?" I thought about a bunch of different things, but I was like,
Yeah,
"We're going to go with the warrior cook." We're,
of course. Yeah, none other than the human warrior cook, the most, arguably the most important character in the game.
I would argue
Um,
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, before we get into it, let's clear those pesky mobs, Seth. So I'm gonna have you help me out here because there's a lot of
Please.
upcoming events here. But first, if you like what we do, support the show. You can, if you're live right now, you can subscribe
Got the
and
meow.
like the stripe. Yep, of course. Over at youtube.com/carpool gaming. And then twitch.tv/carpool gaming live is where we do our streams over there, right?
Yeah.
And and then first off, before we get into it, Extra Life is coming.
Yes.
Yes,
Very close.
very close in
I will
November
be
4th.
there. I will be
That's
there in
nice.
person. Sean and Amanda will be there too. It's gonna be a good time. It's coming up very very soon. Carpool Gaming will be there with bells on, my friends. So look
Nice.
forward to that. And in fact, we're planning on coming in like a little bit early, and we'll have
Mm.
details on that as well because we've got some very exciting plans. Sean, Capri, and I are going to touch. Please be excited.
Oh, that's
So
gonna be interesting. I can't
yeah,
wait to see that live. That's gonna be a touching moment for sure. Yeah, so Rome, New York, come hang out or catch up on the live stream. We are gonna be streaming. You guys are gonna be streaming so much,
hmm
even before and after Extra Live. So that's super cool. And you can also get early access to the show and other exclusive content over at patreon.com/carpool gaming. You put the tip jar and out comes content, something like that. What Ryan says. You
crushed
put
it.
in money and then content comes out. It's lovely. Just like Dan and Luma did joining the gold tier. I think he mentioned that last week, but I'm gonna mention it this week again because that's
Let's go.
super awesome. But yeah, and then one more event coming up pretty close this week, right, Seth? It's the the Spider Wonder
Spider
contest
Wonder.
and merch. You want to
Yes,
talk about
we
that?
sure. Yeah, we've got a huge giveaway going on. So we are giving away two copies of Spider-Man 2 and slash or Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Couple of ways to enter. You can enter, with no purchase by reviewing either the Nintendo Drive or the PlayStation Drive here on the Carpool Gaming family of MCU family of podcasts. And that'll get you an entry. You can
Mhm.
go to carpoolgaming.com, pick up a Spider Wonder sticker. We have got a beautiful
Right.
design of Elephant Mario as Spider-Man swinging through and saving Bobby, the Carpool Gaming mascot. You can pick up a sticker for an additional entry, and we have that same thing on a shirt that you can pick up for 3 additional entries. So you can potentially get
Mhm.
5 entries into the giveaway. You do still have time. We're drawing the winner on Thursday morning on the 19th. So if you get in before then, you'll be entered in and you can win. So couple of ways to do that. And then on Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be on that old twitch.tv/carpool gaming live playing a whole bunch of Mario Wonder. It's going to be me, Sean, and Ryan. And then we're
Nice.
passing it off to Court and Matt at 2 p.m. Eastern for Spider-Man 2. So
Wow.
yeah, it's going to be a big old day of streaming. We're going to do a subathon. We've got goals. We got all kinds of stuff
That's so cool.
happening on Friday. It's going to be a huge day. Yeah.
So, it's the Barbenheimer of video
Yes.
games. You got Spider-Man 2, It's reviewing pretty well, I see. So that's super
Hmm.
dope. And of course, Mario Wonder, that's looking like a really nice game for sure. A
Oh
great
yeah,
Mario platformer. So yeah,
can't wait.
huge video game day for sure. All right, now that we got all that out of the way, Seth, let's get into it. Let's get into reviewing Sea of Stars. Of course, this is the RPG. I would say classic '90s RPG inspired,
Hmm.
JRPG inspired game, indie game from Sabotage Studios, the makers of The Messenger, which was also super dope. I haven't played it myself because I'm not really into it, but now I've played this game. I want to play this as well. Or yeah, The Messenger as well. Yeah, I just, first of all, before we get into our over level thoughts, like what was your prior information about this game? Did you support Kickstarter? Were you really into it? I just want to hear what's your journey before you played the game.
Yeah, so I did support it on Kickstarter, actually, and that was, like, I played The Messenger and I liked it. I didn't
Okay.
love The Messenger, but I did like it. That's a weird game. Um and there's a lot to love about that game for sure. And if you are a like Ninja Gaiden fan, I think you'll probably find a lot to like in that game.
Right.
It's good. And weirdly, and we'll kind of get into this, but some of my same problems with The Messenger actually kind of crop up in Sea of Stars as well,
Interesting.
which is interesting, and we'll get into that. But yeah, so I was already kind of a fan of Sabotage a little bit, but then yeah, the Kickstarter and seeing like that art style, the game's beautiful, the music, the involvement of Yasunori Mitsuda, who is my favorite composer of all time.
Hmm.
That all, I was like, yep, done, take my money. And that was, I guess, like over 3 years ago. And
Wow.
now here we are, finally
Right.
playing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. So for me, I did not support it initially. Like I don't really support Kickstarters too much.
Yeah.
I don't like putting my money in and not knowing if it's gonna come out or not. But when I
Mm.
saw the Twitter, I think what really caught my attention with this game was the Twitter account, the
Hmm.
Sea of Stars or Sabotage Studios or whatever. They constantly made short videos of
Yeah.
the gameplay, and it just looked beautiful. It just looked perfect. Like from an aesthetic standpoint, from a pixel art standpoint, that's what really caught my attention. And of course, being a 2D turn-based, Chrono Trigger inspired, I would say RPG. I was sold. I was like, okay, I am sold with day one buy, or it eventually came to Game Pass and PS Plus, which great get for them.
Yeah.
For that bag of money from that side. Fortunately, I had a friend, he actually gifted me the game, which it was very nice of him.
Nice.
And I played all the way through on my Steam Deck. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was pretty nice. Okay, let's get into it. So, overall thoughts, Seth. Did you love it? Did you like it, or was it kind of meh for you? What was
I
it?
like, it's funny. I'm glad that we're having this conversation now, actually, Garrett, because I finished the game probably like close to a month ago now.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly when the game, it was like at
it
least
came
a
out in
few weeks ago.
August. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's been a
So
little bit.
it's been a little bit, but I'm glad that I've had this time to marinate on it because I've had a bunch of conversations about the game, and my opinion of the game has elevated with time. I 100%ed the game, at least to the
Okay.
best of my ability, and like so I've seen like what the game has to offer, and I at first felt a little bit cold on it. I have some issues with the writing and like
Yeah.
the story a little bit that I'm sure we'll get into, and I think that
Yeah.
some of the combat I think is a little easy. There are a few things that kind of didn't land for me, but as a whole, I think that they have successfully captured like the vibe that they were
Yes.
trying to capture here very well. And I've actually, in talking about it with other people and especially with people who like the game more than I do, I've really kind of come to appreciate some of the game's simplicity that when I was first playing
Mhm.
it, I was kind of like, this game is a little too simplistic for me. Now I feel like I can kind of see the beauty in some of that simplicity.
Hmm.
And I feel much more positively about it sitting here with you tonight than I would have had we done it like a month ago.
I see.
You
It
know.
sounds good. Yeah. I'll just jump off of that. Yeah. I think it's a good to great game for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I finished it about a week ago. I didn't want to 100% it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
particularly care to do that in most games unless I am obsessed and absolutely loved it and need to go more.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to just finish the game and just be done with it. But yeah, in terms of the structure of this game, as you said, it is it it there's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of just scaling and leveling, and then also just the story bits. You're not I mean, there is side quests near the end, but most of the game, you are going on a linear path and you're just not really straying away from it, which is very, I mean, like, from the JRPG, like classic JRPG wise, like the love letter to that, sure, it's close alignment to that, but it is very unusual compared to what we see now, especially, with all these indie RPGs coming around. They also do side quests and they also do
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more, but for this game, it was definitely more curated. I like that word. It was a very
Yeah.
curated game from start to finish, which has its pros and cons. And I think the devs intentionally made it that way. It's not like
Right.
necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way they wanted to make it. And that's I think that's fine. I you kind of need some of those games every once in a while. Because I get exhausted by these other RPGs that it's like, okay, now you're gonna grind 50 levels. Like, Octopath Traveler
Yeah.
2 is like that. It's
Oh
totally like
gosh.
that.
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
under leveled going to the next chapter, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll train for like 20 hours and then come back to this chapter. But for this one, I think it's that it's also approachable like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through this game and you're able to beat it. It's not punishing too much. Um, but yeah, anyways. So yeah, I'll go through like kind of just the various aspects of this game. But first, Seth, what do you think about the graphics and art style? I know I mentioned it. What about you?
It's
What do you
beautiful.
think of it? Yeah.
Like the way the game like looks and sound to me is like actually the best part of it. Like I love
Hmm.
it's some of the best like pixel art, and the environments are breathtaking. Like the character designs, it's wonderful. I mean, all of it is really really you can tell there is so much like love and passion in the pixel art here, and you could tell where so much of the hard work went. Some of the like boss designs and enemy designs are incredible. Yeah, like the entire like presentational package of Sea of Stars is like for me like top in class. Like I really cannot imagine like something like this looking better than this, being like more
Hmm.
well realized. It's just, yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Did you play it on Switch?
I did,
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Did you play on the OLED Switch? That's what I'm curious about.
yes,
Oh,
yes. Switch
I'm I,
OLED,
I'm sure that was just absolutely beautiful.
beautiful. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I agree with you. I think this is like, if you think of the top games that are pixel, like from a graphical and art style standpoint, just from a pixel art in general, this is one of the best, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It just oozes with so much animation and pixel art style. It's just really up there. With, I would say, I mean, Shovel Knight's a good one too. May it beat that as well. It's just a color palette and the way they move all the individual objects like fauna and bushes, and then it's just
Yeah.
different types of scenery
The
all around.
lighting,
The
oh,
lighting is
so
insane.
good.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how a pixel art game can be that beautiful, but they really pulled it off. I think that was one of their strongest aspects of this game was the graphics and art style. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, everything else can be kind of trash, and that's okay because I am looking at a beautiful game.
Yeah, it's I
So,
like I genuinely I would love to just like have a moving like a Sea of Stars like virtual wallpaper. Just like it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like I just want to like live in that world. Like, and that's a nice thing because to your point, like that can do a lot of heavy lifting for you. You know,
Hmm.
like if your game is just like a pleasant place to be and hang out and like, you know, you find some joy in exploring that world. I do have some issues with the actual like navigation of the world,
Yeah.
especially when the game asks you to backtrack, which was weirdly a problem that I had in the Messenger too. Like the games you mentioned earlier, it's the word I would use for this game is frictionless. Like
Mm.
it very much like has this linear path carved out for you. You go from A to B and you don't have a ton of friction between A and B.
Right.
But if at any point you have to backtrack, it kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
And it becomes like a huge pain. The game doesn't have any sort of like in-game map. They intended for it to be very sort of diegetic, like you just kind of like learn your environment and get around. And like it's good that everything like looks as good as it does because you're gonna be, especially again if you go for 100%, you're backtracking, you're looking for collectibles and stuff. Like you kind of need to know your way around these places
That's
because
true.
it can be brutal.
I'm sure there's, there's one collectible that you have to like 100% that in order to like
Hmm.
100% the game. So you did it. You collected all the shells, which props
Yeah.
to you, man. That's all. There's so many, and there's so many secret areas too in this
Hmm.
game. Kind of like because it's just hidden behind a waterfall or it's just off at an angle or whatever. They can hide stuff pretty well. The last like quarter of the game, I was really obsessed with like, okay, there's a little crevice right there, and my person go behind it, and is there a chest there? Is there a shell there? Like, 9 times out of 10 it wasn't, and then sometimes I click A everywhere, and it's just I got lucky. So
Hmm.
yeah, in terms of backtracking, I agree with you. There's one point in the game I just could not believe it. And that it backtracked me so far. And I'm like, you genuinely didn't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You genuinely like, how do I get to the place that where I needed to go? That was one part that was puzzling. Other than that, I felt okay. Like going through without an in-game map. But
Hmm.
yeah, that one part that we could talk about in the spoiler field conversation that I just couldn't
Sure.
believe. Next thing I want to talk about is the combat. I think it's it's following a lot of different games here. I would say I've played Chrono Trigger and I mentioned that before. Definitely has that feel, and of course Mario RPG, where you kind of just approach some enemies and then it is turn based, but also has that interactivity with the shielding and then also extra damage when you have a button press or button prompt or whatever. Um, Different enemies had different, enemy move sets and strokes and beats, and you had to learn what they were doing. And then also the different kind of breaks, when they're charging their move set, you have a list of things you gotta use of elements and in order to break them in a turn set. I just think the combat structure was very fulfilling. It wasn't over too complicated. I think they did themselves right with whatever they had, with the characters, with the move sets and combos. So I just want to take it off to you, Seth. What do you think about the combat of this
Yeah,
game?
I love like the setup of the combat, like the locks, like you mentioned, this notion of like when you are fighting an enemy, every so often they'll have like kind of a super move or something, and you
Yeah.
can interrupt them from doing that, or at the very least, negate a large portion of the damage by performing moves that have like some sort of magical property, be it, the two
Hmm.
main characters, Valir and Zale. Valir is like sort of got this moon element,
Hmm.
magic tied to her, and Zale's got the sun. So you'll see like, oh, I need to hit them, twice with like the moon element and once with the, a sharp weapon or something. And like you can kind of combine those things and plan out your turn order appropriately to break those locks with the goal of interrupting the super attack. But even if you don't break them all to interrupt it, you'll at least negate a lot of the
Hmm.
damage. which is good. It's also, you mentioned the Mario RPG comparison. There's a lot of like timing based stuff, which I love. I don't know how you come down on timing based combat in RPGs. I love it personally.
Hmm.
Like, to me, it's like it's so much more engaging. Like, I really like having to think about the sort of rhythm
Hmm.
of combat in that way. You kind of get to know, like, especially there are a couple of moves in the game, like the Moonerang,
Oh,
that
that
Valir
was
shoots
addictive.
out. And like, yeah, you're just like bouncing, it's just ping ponging back and forth and getting faster. Like, I love that stuff, man. So I really did enjoy the combat. It does remind me, like you mentioned OT2, like it does remind me of OT2's combat system a little bit.
Right.
Because they have the sort of break mechanic in there
They
too.
do. Yeah.
And I liked that quite a lot. I liked the timing element. I do think that like there are a couple ways, and you know, one of the characters you get later on has a couple of very OP
Yes.
abilities that kind of negate a lot of the challenge of some of it. I felt like the bosses are very like, they're all cool and like cool to look at and stuff, but it's very easy to kind of figure out what their like singular gimmick is, and
Yeah,
then
definitely.
kind of like once you do, they're just kind of a cakewalk. So I struggled with that, but the core of the combat system I think is very solid.
Yeah, I agree. That last, I would say 25%, I was like, this is a little too easy. And the final boss
Yeah.
was, it was, I honestly thought it was too easy. I'm like, all right, guys, this, I mean, like, it's fun. This was a good time, but that last boss, I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm done with the game.
Yeah. Did you do
Kind of
did you
deal.
do the true ending?
No, I did not do the
Okay.
true ending. I just did
So
the, yeah, original one.
even even the final boss in the true
Oh,
ending is
really?
not difficult. Like, it's not like you figure out what he's got going on, and like you just kind of, and like the thing about it too is like some of the bosses are really tanky. So like
That's true.
once you figure out what they have going on, you're just kind of rinsing and repeating for like half an hour.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
And also, upon that, what I mentioned before is that there is not really a grinding situation, right? Because you're really
Mhm.
just going through point A to point B, as you said, and the leveling up is just kind of along with the ride. So the leveling up, there's not too much going on. You can add some more points to specific stats, but I never
Yeah.
felt like it was super impactful, at least from my end. I just wanted to balance out the stats for each character. What was very interesting too, which I actually liked, was the leveling system was all in unity, right?
Yes.
Everyone leveled up at the same time. There's not these kind of like, oh, this one character's over leveled, this one character's under leveled. We're gonna have to figure this out, type of deal. No, it's just like, no, everyone is leveling up together. Everyone's level 13, 14, which was
I
an
love that.
interesting design choice, to be honest with you. You never see that in RPGs. And so yeah, there's that. All right, so we've done with combat and structure. That was cool. Let's go in through the various little mini mechanics all around. So first off, cooking. Did you like the cooking in this game?
I did. I like the cooking. I love the the art that's associated with the cooking. I do wish that they had gone a little bit deeper with it, because one thing that's cool about this game, and another thing that I like that ties into combat, is you can only ever hold 10 items, like healing
Yes.
items and stuff. They cap that, which I like, because it turns even the act of using an item into something that is like meaningful and
Mhm.
something that, you know, does have weight in combat. So I dug that. And the cooking is great too. I wish that there could have been like some more effects, like if they,
Yeah.
because you don't really get status effects that much. There's not like that much in the way of like poison or, you know, whatever, like frozen status effects, or you know, they don't go too deep with that. I would have liked to see a little bit more. For the most part, food is almost always just to either revive, heal, or restore MP or
That's
SP
it.
or whatever
Yeah.
they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would have been neat to see like other recipe. There's like a ton of recipes in the game. It would have been neat to see like some other kind of stuff to play with there. But I love that it's in there. Like I love that you can cook. I love like in
Yeah.
Monster Hunter, like preparing with a meal and stuff like that. I love
See the
cooking in games.
animations.
Mm-hmm.
of the food. I love the pixel art food, man. Like when
So
I saw
good.
them, like that looks scrumptious. I wish it was a little bit more of a mini game.
Yeah.
Like some button prompts, or I don't know, turning around a pot. I don't know, just something to be a little
Little
bit more
something.
interactive. Yeah, but you just hold the button. I think it was interesting. Yeah, they do cap it at 10 items. Sometimes, I find cooking items throughout the game in chests, and I'm like, it's full. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll waste an item in order to
Yeah.
get this other item that is better. So yeah, that was interesting. And also, I think goes in hand with as you said, the reviving. The death part wasn't as punishing either. Whereas,
Right.
like, they kind of die. One of your characters can kind of die, and that could be a strategy for you, because you just wait a few turns, and they'll just revive back up
Mm-hmm.
whenever. But you just gotta have that little wait moment. And so yeah, revive cooking items can help you out there. There's one character that does get a revive skill, which was very
Right.
helpful near the end. But let's get into my favorite part of the game. No
Let's
joke.
go. Let's go.
Wheels.
I knew you were gonna
Wheels.
say it. I love wheels
Yes.
too. Yeah, I
Good.
love it too.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's probably one of the better mini games I have played in any video game. To be honest with you, it's original, it's strategic, it is turn based, it has that random effect too. It's not like you have a strategy. Oh, you're gonna beat them every time. Wheels is much harder than Sea of Stars, the game.
Yeah.
I lost constantly just because it's a slot machine, and the AI has a slot machine, and they know what to do. They know exactly what to do. Just to give you a premise of what this game is, you pick two kind of classes on the left and the right side, and then you have a slot machine in the middle. The objective is to break down the enemy's HP points and wall and fortification. And then so it's kind of like Yahtzee, where you pull the slot machine, you get some matches in there, and now you upgrade or attack or give an attack meter on the left and the right side of your characters, or will fortify your wall in front of the enemy, and the enemy has the same thing. And so you kind of have to figure out which one you want to power up, which one you want to attack, or do you want to fortify yourself, depending on what the enemy is doing. And then also the different characters, there's different classes. So there's like a rogue, there's like a mage that has different skills, where, like, I don't know, like it could be two attacks for a mage. A bowman can attack directly over the wall and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it was so cool to play through this. I guess you 100%, so you beat the champion, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, not
Hmm.
easy, man. There's
Not
there's
easy.
some there is some tough fights, and especially the hardest one for me, weirdly, was the one where the other person has got that like cleric character who can
Right.
like not only heal but also like reduce the amount of turns it takes for them to level up or attack or whatever.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that was tough. That was a tricky one. That was by far the one that gave me. I probably did that for a solid like hour and a half before I finally beat them. But yeah, I loved Wheels. I had such a good. I was like, I could play a whole game of just this,
Oh
like
yeah, for
straight up.
sure. It was Gwent level of addictiveness.
Yeah, it's
So
great.
hats off to them on making this cool little mini game within this indie RPG. You don't see that in indie games, so I'm glad they took a stab at that for sure. And then the fishing mini game. Did you like the
Yeah.
fishing mini game in this one?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
Like I like that it was like in there and it's pretty straightforward. It did take me a couple seconds to figure out how it worked, like to to figure out like kind of what because you have like this sort of like I don't even know like
It's like
silhouetted
a
like line.
area. Yeah, like a vertical
Yeah.
area that you want to reel in the fish. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
outside that area, that means that you're going to lose that fish. It's going to eventually
Yeah.
break the line if you keep holding the button, and the fish is kind of just reeling left and right depending on how difficult the fish is. I find it I caught on to this fishing mini game more than many other fishing mini games. Fishing mini games is a kind of a pastime for RPGs. You see it
Right.
everywhere. They could be complicated, they could be hard, or they could be too easy. I think this one's kind of in the middle, but it can be annoying if the fish is kind of just wavering left and right because
Dude,
it's not
there's
too hard.
there's a post game. You have to do this for the true ending.
Oh
There's
no.
a like no, not really a spoiler, but there is a fishing centric thing that you have to do
Oh no.
for like the true ending that is very very annoying, like extraordinarily annoying. So that took some time too.
Oh wow. That's
Yeah.
well, there you go. That's fishing mini games for you. Weapons and armor sets, these were pretty simple too. These were kind of the run of the mill, like, oh, this weapon has better stats. Let me equip it, let me sell the other one. And we've seen this before. It's not like a bad idea or anything. It's just the way it goes sometimes with these RPGs. Sometimes you find the weapon, sometimes you just buy it from the store, and they're kind of literally the same thing. I didn't do post game, but I didn't find any like, oh, this is super rare. Like it's not like, oh,
Yeah.
this is an exotic weapon of some kind. No, it's the next weapon for this particular character that has better stats. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Each character does have like a sort of ultimate weapon that you
okay,
can get for them in the post game. They each have like the one, and then there are a couple. There are these things in the post game called solstice shrines, which were pretty
okay,
cool. And if you do those, you can get some unique like accessories that are typically kind of also geared towards one of the characters, even though, like, yeah, I mean, at root, you got a weapon, armor, and accessory. That's like
yeah,
it, you
yeah,
know? So it's very straightforward, very simple. I didn't have a problem with it, but yeah, for the bulk of the game, you're just going to be picking up sort of the same stuff. You can
yeah.
buy things from shops. I never did personally.
Mm,
I just kind of like kept grabbing the stuff I found in chests,
right.
and that got me through.
Yeah, I didn't find it too hard to either buy the weapons or get the weapons within the game. It just seemed pretty straightforward to catch up on
Yeah,
the up to date weapons and armor. I think this one is an interesting thing, though. The amulets,
yeah,
the kind of the helping items, and this is, I think, a cool idea. For like, hey, you can equip this, and it's kind of a handicap where it's like, okay, you do double damage to the enemies. You can see their HP. Actually, I held on to one of them throughout the game just because I just wanted to. I didn't really need to. Where it's showing the HP in the common
yes.
enemies, and I just wanted that just to have it there. But did you use any amulets?
Yeah, the HP one, I used that straight away. Like the second I got that, it is handy to be
Yeah.
able to see the enemy HP and stuff. But otherwise, not really. There was one sort of special one that you could use to help make the like rainbow conch hunting a little easier.
Okay.
It kind of it basically gives you this like parrot who, if you look at the overworld map and go to an area, it'll tell you if you're missing stuff in that area.
Oh,
So it
that's
doesn't
nice, actually.
doesn't tell you
Yeah.
where, but you at least can go there and you kind of can fumble around a little bit and find it. So that helped. But yeah, otherwise, I don't think I equipped really any of them. There was one. This was a little bit of a bummer for me actually, because something that I wish the game did is like give you, even though I felt like it was already kind of easy, like in a lot of games like this, often you will sort of reset or get like a heal after battle,
Hmm.
which would have been kind of nice to see here, especially in areas that are very like enemy dense.
Hmm.
But the only way to get that is by equipping an amulet that also gives you an additional, like it doubles your HP basically. It does both.
Oh,
And I'm like, well, I
okay.
don't need that. I just want the heal between battles. That's all I want, you
Right.
know? So,
Right.
but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these were just like, why would I need this kind of throwaway? But it's good to have it. I think I wish they had it the other way, where it's like, it kind of like debuffs you or buffs you in a way.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to make it a little bit harder for myself. It's like, why don't it does half damage or something like that, just to I mean, like, I probably wouldn't do it if it's like straightforward like that, but something to make it a little bit more complicated, maybe like
Yeah.
double the locks or something like
Yes.
that. Add
So
two more locks to a character or whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
So they're adding something exactly like what you're describing with the
Okay.
DLC.
Oh, okay, great.
They've got DLC coming, and they're adding at least one amulet that is like that. That is like we're making. I think what it is like you. I think it increases the number of locks. They showed this recently on
Oh,
their
nice.
social media. It increases the locks, but I think it also makes it so that you can't like interrupt like a channel that an enemy is doing. It should make the combat a little more challenging, at least. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Because yeah, I would like to make it. I would like to experiment that a little bit, just because,
Hmm.
as we said, it is once you figure it out, it's pretty straightforward to like go through this
Yeah.
game. So that would be cool. Last thing before we get into spoilers is I want to talk to you about the writing overall, just in general. Of course, there's comments and tweets out there about grammar mistakes and
Hmm.
whatnot, and of course those are obvious and like we've seen them. It's there and I read them. I have to reread them maybe 2 or 3 times in order to get it. That's okay. They're our French team, so I kind of
Right.
give them a pass on that. But I honestly think the style of writing, whether it be in like whatever language, it's just kind of, I don't know. It's not really there for me. I've kind of played many other RPGs that have a really high caliber of writing and voice acting too. So voice acting helps for sure. But yeah, this writing it just felt very, I don't know, narrow. It kind of positioned words weirdly, or just the exposition of things was off for me. I don't know. It didn't really hit for me as much as other RPGs. So what do you think about the writing in general?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sorry. I know I see Yarden with the tears in the chat. It's not about to get any better. The writing for me is one of the weakest elements of the game. Like yeah, I can be a stickler for grammar and stuff, but I get it at the same time. It's not a deal breaker for me. I like the sort of overarching story of the game. I think that the game has
Mhm.
got a couple of really nice, especially like in the post game trending stuff, that I really kind of like some of the things that happen in the game story. I do think that the characters, for the most part, are pretty flat. I think there's some
Yeah,
missed potential. Like we mentioned, like Garl is an absolute treat and a treasure, and
he is.
everybody loves Garl because, of course, they do. I also really liked Sarai. Valir and Zale, unfortunately, are just kind of nothing characters, and like they don't
They're kind
really
of along
go.
for the ride.
Yeah, they don't really go anywhere. Like they, and I understand, because that's kind of, I think, intentional. I think there's at least a little. They're sort of just, they're born into this role of being solstice warriors, and
Mhm.
that's kind of it.
They're
And
kind of like your avatars, like
yeah,
that's you
yeah,
going throughout the journey because you pick either one of them in the beginning of the
right.
game as well.
And but like it's weird because a character like Garl winds up almost feeling more like the main character than they do.
Oh yeah,
Because they
100%.
just don't they just don't like get all that much to do, unfortunately. Even though the game does have a couple of really interesting things going on, and there are a couple of characters too, especially like some of the villains that I think have interesting sort of motivations that don't super get expanded upon. Even though some of it is like understandable and justifiable, they're not expanded upon too much. So that kind of stuff fell a little bit flat for me. And like the writing too, some of it felt a little like amateurish to me, like a little.
Yeah.
So Garrett, something that you might not know about me, I grew up as a teenager writing fan fiction on the internet a lot.
Oh, that's awesome.
um yeah, and I've written a lot of fan fiction, and some of it to me read like fan fiction.
It,
Like
it I have to be honest with you. I felt like I was reading someone probably from eighth or ninth grade. It's like
yeah,
this is like
yeah,
not a writer like a like writing a novel or something like that. As you said,
yeah,
it's
and
more fan
dialogue.
fiction.
like
Dialogue, yeah.
particularly the dialogue. Like I do think that the world they've built here and like the I think the world and the characters are good, but the dialogue I
Hmm.
think is quite pedestrian if I'm being
Yeah,
honest. And like
yeah,
there's just not a lot of like something that Chrono Trigger did really well. And this game is again very inspired by Chrono Trigger.
for
Chrono
sure.
Trigger has got the world, but it also like has a lot of like little kind of bits of flavor, even though like the same criticism that I just lodged against Valir and Zale, you could say the exact same thing about Chrono. It's a problem there too, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There Chrono's also something of a nothing character, and I think they directly respond to that with this game, but we'll get into that when we get into spoilers.
Hmm.
Um and like but when it comes to the actual dialogue and characterization and stuff, like that to me feels very like, okay, your strong suit is building the world. Your strong suit is laying the groundwork, building the world, and giving me interesting characters. Your strong suit is not necessarily the way these characters speak. That's
Yeah.
kind of that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I more or less agree with you. It's like if you're going into this, don't expect the top tier, high caliber writing that you see in, like major yeah, RPGs. Like I honestly, I was fresh off of Octopath Traveler 2, like playing that, and their writing is just, I don't know what they do. It's just impeccable. To be honest
Yeah.
with you, it's really really top tier. So when I played this game right after Octopath Traveler 2, it's like the difference is just very noticeable. But yeah, just know that going into it.
Yeah, and like OT2's got voice acting too, right? As we
That's
mentioned, this
another
game
thing.
doesn't
Yeah.
also. And so like voice acting could kind of carry you along a lot of the way when Sea of Stars doesn't, like, and you're just sort of left to the mercy of the of the text. Like, you
Hmm.
do end up scrutinizing the text a little bit more. Amanda's in the chat saying this entire time I've been saying her name like Valerie. Yeah, I mean, you can say it however you want. I don't imagine they care, but the official pronunciation guide is Valir.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah. Hmm.
I yeah, but anyways, I got one question before we get into the spoiler
Hmm.
territory, and this is coming from the Muffin Mon, our favorite person on the
Let's
internet.
go.
How do you feel about the true ending being locked behind the 100%? It really annoys me when games do this. Seth,
Hmm.
what do you think about this?
It is annoying. It's well, especially like particularly the rainbow conch thing. I don't know why that is the I don't really know why
That
that is
one
part
was
of
weird.
the requirement. Some of it makes
Yeah.
sense because a lot of so like the setup of the game's like true ending, and this is not a spoiler. You have to basically meet some of the like these requirements. There's like these stones that light up when you meet certain requirements. One of them is the rainbow conch. Many of the other ones make sense. There's like an arena coliseum kind of thing in the game.
Hmm.
Complete that, you light up a stone. Many of the other ones are like, hey, do this character's sort of special side quest. If you think about Mass Effect or Final Fantasy or whatever, like a character having like a sort of specific side quest. A lot of the stones are tied to stuff like that too. That all makes perfect sense to me. But then one of them is the stupid rainbow conch. It's like, why did you tie that? That you gotta do that to get the true ending? It's super annoying. I don't understand it.
Hmm.
It's like it's fine. I lucked out because by the time I got to that point in the game, I had sort of naturally throughout the course of the game found like there's 60 of them, and I think I found like 40 like six or something
That's pretty
naturally.
good, to be honest with
So
you.
I didn't have to clean up too much, but some of the stuff you have to do to get some of the rainbow conches is like very annoying. I don't know why they did that. And it's a
It's
shame because
yeah.
I do think the game's best content is in that post game sort of area. So it's
Oh man.
unfortunate that like a lot of people won't get the chance to see that if they don't feel like doing that kind of busy work.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah, I think having this true ending type of deal, I just hope it's, you know, not the most important part of their game. Like I get
mhm.
it doing extra post content stuff after the main game and rolling credits. I just I wish it was more of like an Easter egg or like a foreshadowing for the next game, and less about, this is the absolute true ending. You should have done this part in order to
Right.
understand the game.
To
That
get a
type of
full
deal.
experience. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I do get annoyed by that, but depending on if I am obsessed with the game or not, I'm more than likely just to go to the next game, just because I like to hop around many genres and many games, and
Mm-hmm.
so I was satiated at the end of the main story of this one. And actually, I read the true ending. I just read
Right.
it. I was like, okay, I read it. I watch it.
Just watch it on
Great.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of there, so that's fine. I don't need to play it.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, do you recommend Sea of Stars, Seth?
Yeah, I do. I think that, for most people, especially, I mean, Game Pass, PS Plus Extra, that's an easy recommend. I think that if you are a fan of, RPGs of this type, especially these nostalgic sort of Super Nintendo RPGs, I do think there's a lot to like here. I don't think the game's perfect. I don't think it's game of the year. I think the people that say this game is game of the year are crazy. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand that. Like,
Yeah,
that's
there's too many strong champions in this
it's a bit
year
much,
to.
y'all.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
could be.
that's
Oh, definitely in the indie game category, or it could be picked for the greatest RPG. I think that could be up in the running, but I agree with you. It's like game of the
like
year. It's like, I
yeah,
don't know. Calm
peace
down.
and love, y'all. Look, but calm down a little bit. All right,
Yeah.
but it is good, and I do, I do respect what they did. I will be interested. I like it more than the Messenger. I like it much more than the Messenger, actually. And I'll definitely be interested in what they do next. And again, the more I marinate on the game, the more I talk about the game, the more I feel positively about it. I'm glad I played it, and yeah, I would recommend this to most RPG fans, I feel like.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you there. All right, so we are going into spoiler territory, so be warned, everyone. And within the next 15 seconds, and letting future Ryan know in this editing,
Yeah.
that this is the part where we're gonna go into spoiler territory. So you got 5 seconds.
You've
4,
been warned.
3, 2, 1. All right, we are now in spoiler area territory, and I think I want to just first give off about this game. I didn't see the twist coming at all.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is I'll just get to that point, because when I was going through this game, Seth, I thought it was just going to be about these solstice warriors in this world that's overcoming and going through adventures and evil or whatnot, and you eventually get to the point where you're crossing the Sea of Stars.
Yes.
And I think that was the best moment in terms of story with the game.
It's cool.
It's very cool. I did not see it going on the other side. It gave me, Pokemon, the recent Pokemon vibes.
Yeah.
I forgot the versions. But yeah, that it was kind of like that level where, okay, we're gonna go to the other side of the world where this dark villain has already sucked, like hit the sun and bury the moon and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, what did you see this twist coming? I'm just
So
curious.
no, but like the interesting thing was, so I guess maybe light spoilers for the Messenger. In the
Okay, yeah,
Messenger,
go
and
for it.
these do take place in the same universe.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that maybe something that happens in the Messenger is that about midway through, the Messenger goes from being like a sort of like 2D Ninja Gaiden style thing, and it then becomes like a sort of like 16-bit Metroidvania about midway through.
Okay,
And
sounds good.
it's kind of neat, and then with this, when you go to cross the Sea of Stars, the game shifts perspective for a second and becomes
Mhm.
3D. And I was
It
like,
does.
"Oh." I was like, "Is this about to get like is this going to just morph into a 3D RPG right now?" Like, I
That'd
was
be
like, "This is
crazy.
about to get sick." That would have been insane, but it doesn't go that far, unfortunately. But like when you do go to when you do go to the other sort of world, Sarai's world and stuff like that.
Sarai's World, yes.
Yeah, you like it all of a sudden is this sort of ruined like Ghost in the Shell kind of moment, like kind of this cyberpunk apocalypse,
Right.
yeah, and that was pretty neat where like yeah, the Fleshmancers already sort of destroyed this world. These people are kind of like hopeless, cyborgs. And like that, like that was cool. I wish that they had done. I had this thought as I was doing that section of the game, Garrett, where
Yeah.
the thing about that world is, yeah, like they put the moon at the bottom of the ocean. The sun is in the sky blocked by like a cloud machine or whatever.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um it would have been kind of neat if like in that section of the game, Valer and Zale had no power. Like if they
That
couldn't
would
do
be
their
like
magic.
weakened a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been
That
cool.
would have been cool for sure. And I honestly wish this part was kind of earlier in the game. I felt like leading to this moment, there was some filler going
Right.
on in here. Don't get me wrong. I like the ghost ship adventure or whatever, various islands all around the main world, but I think they were just beating it around to the point of what the main story was. There was about a good, I would say, 12 to 15 hours where I'm just like, all right, going on to the next adventure, kind of deal.
Hmm.
Like I felt like I was going through the run of the mill RPG. And then I get to this point and I'm like, you should have shown me this a little bit sooner because I would have been a little bit more amped for it or a little bit more ready for it. Because when I was going through this second part, I would say this is the second part of the game.
Yeah.
Um, it felt rushed. It really
Hmm.
did. I felt like I was like, okay, when is the end of the game now? Like kind of deal. I felt like I was going from one area to the next, and I'm like, I just don't care because I just want to beat the Fleshmancer and just be done with
Sure.
it.
Hmm.
But that I think that's just the pacing for me with this one. But it was interesting to see this kind of twist. With this first part was like it's a fantasy, some ghost ships, some pirates in there, and then going to the cyborg machine
Yeah.
on the
It's
other
kind of
side.
cool. Like
Yeah,
I like visually it's neat. Chrono Trigger, that's where the game kind of finally starts to show a little bit of
definitely,
its Chrono Trigger
definitely.
influence cuz like I felt for the vast majority of the game I was like, "Okay, I don't really get Chrono Trigger all that much." Like I was like this to me is much more Mario and Luigi or even Golden Sun, like way more Golden
Hmm.
Sun
Hmm.
vibes
Hmm.
than Chrono Trigger. But like when I got there, I was like, okay, this is starting to feel a little Chrono Trigger-ish. This is starting to feel a little future sections,
Hmm.
of Chrono Trigger to me, and that was really neat, and I liked that whole sort of area. But it does feel like yeah, by the time you reach that point, you've already spent so much time in like the sort of main world that it does feel a little bit. And there's even, I mean, there's just literally less like area to explore in that
There's
other world
definitely
too.
less area, yeah.
Yeah.
And then anyways, I want to talk to you about the villains in this game.
Mm.
Were you kind of convinced of the older Solstice warriors, or at
Yeah.
least one of them becoming the overarch villain that betrayed everyone?
Yeah, that's really funny because like yeah, they have that twist and that first the twist of them like sort of being over it and like betray. I saw that coming like a mile away. Like it was so obvious
Yeah,
that like that was gonna
it
happen.
was
But
kind of there.
yeah, but I did like their motivation to me made sense because like the Solstice Warriors just go through this whole song and dance and like at a certain point you feel like why are we doing this? You're like this is
Mhm.
no way to live and like actually like let's just leave all of this behind. Even if it means destroying the literal world. They would have been okay with that if it just meant that they didn't have to carry out their duty and make that be their entire life anymore, and they
Right.
didn't want that for Valer and Zale either. So like I understood where they were coming from. Yeah, the notion of like towards the end of it, Erlina is made like sort of the
Right.
like the final boss of like the normal ending of the game. And she's kind of made like some big like yeah overlord, kind of becomes like a little like listless and is just kind of like whatever, like I'll give up like my humanity basically.
Right.
In like that to me
For
didn't
power.
really like yeah I'm like kind of like yeah like all right, I guess you know,
Sure.
but you know why not,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. That, kind of that betrayal, and like, the guy just kind of just, oh, I just want to forget everything and just be gone
Right.
with all this stupidity or whatever. And then the woman becoming the major villain because she wants all the power or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, sure, fine. What did you think about I forget them names. The Fleshmancer and then the other character. I guess are they brothers, right? Or are they
It's
friends?
it's never
It's
they're for sure friends.
yeah.
It's never explicitly said. There's there's maybe a little bit of like romantic, like
Okay.
implication. Who knows? But yeah, I think their names are Rashawn and Aforel. And the interesting thing
Right.
is, I don't know if you've read about like the sort of Sabotage studios like sort of ARG connected world stuff that they
Oh
do
no.
with their games. So it's kind of interesting. So the game, sets up like you're being talked to by like the archivist or whatever, and then you reach a certain point in the game, you knock on the door, and turns out that's the archivist is this character Rashawn, who
Hmm.
has been doing this sort of eternal dance with this other person, the Fleshmancer, and this world is one of millions of other universes and blah
I
blah
see.
blah. And the interesting sort of thing is those characters like in Sabotage's Discord, they'll like pop up and like the idea is that the archivist Rashawn is like sort of passing down stories of these other worlds to Sabotage, and they're creating those stories into games that they're then telling the rest of the people. That's like their little lore,
Hmm.
which is kind of fun and interesting. If I was like 15, I'd be like obsessed with it, you know. Which is sort of like my general feeling of the game in general is like this would have been my favorite game of all time when I was a teenager for sure.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat, and like the way that stuff kind of connects to the messenger is like, yeah, this is the same universe, and that's another story that Rashawn is passed down. But I am a bit of a sucker for the trope of like these characters that are just sort of destined to like be enemies, whatever, for until the end
Enemies
of
or like
time.
it's the yin and the yang, is like
Yeah.
kind of like intermixing with one another. One's light, one's dark, they're polar opposites, yet they have to mix together and mingle
Mm-hmm.
together and interact together. And in this case, they were close friends. And I
Yeah.
think, at the end of the, normal ending, you could tell that they're still close friends.
Mm-hmm.
They have some sort of interaction that's beyond what was set in this. I felt like that part was like, okay, is this story is just so belittling to you guys, like it's just
Right.
you two, and not the story of the Solstice story. The Solstice, I'm gonna be honest with you, the Solstice Warriors, I was not convinced with
Right.
or whatever. It's fine to have it, and it's fine to have the sun and moon type of powers and whatnot, but man, it was really hard for me to get through, I would say, the first 10 or 15 hours of the game, just because I don't know, like it felt too, I don't know, predictable or tropey or whatever. But yeah, that's just me though.
Yeah. I get what you're saying, and I think I had that sense at first. This idea of like it almost is like a little bit of like a nihilistic thing of like, none of this matters because it's one of millions of other worlds,
Right.
and like really you guys and like what you are doing is like the only thing that actually matters because y'all are about to just dip out and go to another world and like do this whole song and dance again. And like that's definitely there, and that is exactly what they do. They just leave. Like even in the true ending, like after you beat the Fleshmancer, like Rashawn shows up and just kind of takes him by the hand and they just go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is weird and fine, but he does like kind of look back and gives them a little bit of a nod. And I liked that because it does sort of say like, hey, like this was worth it, like this got us to reach like this point, so
Hmm.
like what you did have merit. It did have meaning, and that's sort of like the liberating thing about a nihilistic mindset is like if nothing matters, then actually the only thing that matters is what we're doing right now.
Mhm.
And if at the end of it all the overarching thought is like this world doesn't matter, then it's like, well, then what does matter is what you make of the time that you're given. And
Mhm.
that's a huge, I think, theme of the game is like, what are you going to do with the time that you have? Like Garl's character, that's his whole arc, really, of
Right.
the game. You know, I liked that
Yeah.
a lot.
Garl was, of course, a shining moment in this game. He is a normal type of guy. You could say he's a little, he's a little chubby. He may not be
Hmm.
as physically fit. It's funny how the major, the elder solstice warrior instructor person always, kind of talk down on him, like you're not ready for this adventure. You're not it. You're not the person that's gonna
Yeah,
overtake this adventure. And I liked how he just kind of interacted throughout the game, and always had a positive attitude. Always had, oh, I'm just gonna do this, and it's gonna work out. And then he eventually becomes like he is the most important character in this game,
yeah,
for sure. He's like the founder of a town. He is, he dies, and then true ending, you kind of figure out you can reverse time and stuff. So,
yeah.
um,
That's very like that is so Chrono
mhm,
Trigger.
yeah,
In fact, like the moment where you kind of like go back in time in the true ending and save Garl, that's like if you look at that same thing that you can do in Chrono Trigger to save Chrono, like it's almost exactly the same. Like
yeah,
it is so overt in that moment. The thing that I like about Garl as a character, and like this took some time to grow on me, but like yeah, like he's the only one that is not sort of carrying the burden of purpose. All of the other ones do.
right,
Like Brugraves and Erlina are like, hey, like this sucks. We want out, even if it means destroying the world. Valir and Zale, you could see a reality where they would go down the same path as Brugraves and
yep.
Erlina. Like, it sucks. Like, being a Solstice Warrior sucks.
Because you
And,
just
like,
dedicate your life to this,
yeah, you dedicate
whatever
your
it is.
life to it. You're gonna spend your childhood sewing. Like that. Like that sucks. It's not a life worth living. And then the headmaster, he retires. He's like, I'm out. I'm done. All of these characters. Sarai is even sort of like hopeless, and she's like, I want to try
Right.
my best to save my world, but my world's already kind of dead. Um, Garl is the one character that is like the entire time stoked, positive, and he does not carry that burden with him. And what he does in those moments when he does die and when he's approaching like the sort of finality of his life and he's given literally borrowed time, he's like almost his last gift to his friends is this is what you do with the cards that you're dealt. This is how you take on the
Mhm.
burden of purpose and you turn it into a positive. And that's what he kind of gives them. And like in that way, what they did is they took like the criticism of a character like Chrono, who was kind of nothing, and so when he dies, you don't really care. Um, and they took that and they said, well, what if we took the most lovable guy, this doughy, positive, lovable dude,
Right.
and like then you're gonna care when he dies. So he to me is like a response to Chrono Trigger more than anything.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely true. And then also, how Garl kind of like throughout the game, right after his death, he was kind of like mini resurrected, like temporarily resurrected or
Right.
whatever. It was interesting to see his attitude with that he is it's more like full focus for him to
Yeah.
complete his objective and complete his story. It's like, hey guys, it's okay. I know I'm gonna end, but I need to,
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. I need to get through the end with you two solstice warriors, and in order for you to, save the world or whatever. Which was really endearing. I really like Garl overall. And I just want, of course, we've mentioned Garl a lot, in the past few minutes here, but Blaze Knight asks, who's your favorite character and why is it Garl?
I
Seth,
mean,
why is it Garl?
I mean, yeah. Like I mean,
He's
it's like it's hard to not say Garl. And there's a scene in the post game, like after you resurrect Garl, something that you can do is there's this like sort of fancy high end restaurant in Brisk called the Golden Pelican,
Mhm.
and you can have this dinner with the entire party. It's annoying to get to it. It's annoying to do. You have to do this whole like fishing dungeon that I alluded to earlier,
Oh damn.
which is very annoying. And like you have to catch this like massive fish that is like the cook of the restaurant.
Interesting.
Super annoying and frustrating and hard to catch. But when you do, you get to have this great. They all dress up. They're all like in this like suit and tie sort of thing, and they sit down. They have this great dinner together, just sort of like reflecting on their journey. And like I love that stuff. Like in any RPG where I get to just like hang out with the characters. It's the campfire scene in Chrono Trigger. Like it's that to a T. I love that stuff, and like that for me was one of my favorite moments of the game. And like it's impossible not to just be completely in love with Garl. I do like Rashawn and Aforel. We talked about them and their relationship.
Right.
There's a character that you get near the end of the game named Beast that I
Yes.
really like. You don't get a lot of them, but I do
You
like
don't
him a
get a
lot.
lot of them. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
wish we had a little bit more of exposition of him because
Mm-hmm.
he was basically like, "Oh, we met him. Okay, he's a playable character now." It was like very sudden, I would say.
Yeah.
And he has some great move sets too. I think yeah, if they would have pulled that second part just a little bit earlier
Mm-hmm.
and do that a little bit longer, it gave me a Link to the Past vibes,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
light
Dark
world,
World.
dark world type of deal. That would have been cool, but I still enjoyed that part of the game. That's the part where I was like, okay, I am running through this, see what's out there, what's going on with this dark world or whatever. So, anyways, that was awesome. Thank you for talking with me, Seth,
Of
about
course.
all things Sea of Stars. Um, I can't wait to see what Sabotage Studios does next. They can do an RPG, or they can, do really whatever
I
they
hope it's
want.
totally different. Yeah,
Me
I
too.
hope it's a whole other genre because, like, going from the messenger to this was already like such a big, sort of departure. I
Mhm.
hope they take another total left turn,
Yes.
personally. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep that pixel art, but do something else.
Yes.
That would be cool. So that is the end of the show, everyone. And Seth, where can we find you and all your plugs and everything?
Oh man. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever at $2 Hero. You can find me on the Nintendo Drive here at Carpool Gaming, of
Heck
course.
yeah.
We do that every single. We record it live here on YouTube as well. Tuesday nights, if you like. The
Tuesday.
Nintendo Drive. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it for me here.
Cool. And you can follow me at Twitter/X at Bland Explosion. I'm also pretty lively on, I would say, the Nintendo Drive, Xbox Drive, not the PlayStation Drive, of course. But PC gaming for sure. Actually, I want to brag a little bit. I know people are, it's really late in the episode, but I want to mention my Steam Deck, Seth.
Yes.
I put in the Windows dual boot in there, and it's lovely. I can play all I can play Sea of Stars via Game Pass natively on my Steam Deck
Let's
now.
go.
So, anyways, it's been a fun ride with my Steam Deck.
That's
Hopefully,
awesome.
me and Matt will do another PC gaming episode. Maybe end of the year, or we'll see in the next year. I don't know. Depends on if he has time with his
Right.
life too. But anyways, that's pretty much it. And for Seth and myself, I bid you adieu. Goodbye,
Thanks
and
everybody.
see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.